The wind howled through Pinecrest Valley as retired combat medic James Harrison trudged through knee-deep snow, checking the perimeter sensors he'd installed around his mountain cabin. 20 years of military service had left him with habits he couldn't shake, even in this peaceful corner of Colorado. The setting sun painted the snow-laden clouds in shades of purple and orange, promising another frigid December night. That's when he saw it, a streak of blue-white light cutting through the clouds, moving too erratically to be a meteor. The object disappeared behind the ridge, followed by a muffled boom that shook loose snow from nearby pine branches. James's military instincts kicked in immediately. Whatever it was, it hadn't appeared on any flight schedules he monitored. He grabbed his emergency medkit and winter survival gear, habits ingrained from years of combat rescue missions. The trek to the crash site took nearly an hour through the deepening twilight and heavy snow. What he found challenged everything he thought he knew about reality. The craft, if you could call it that, resembled a teardrop of liquid metal, now partially buried in the snow. Steam rose where hot metal met frozen ground, creating an otherworldly mist. But what really caught James's attention was the trail of luminescent blue liquid leading away from the wreckage, blood, or whatever passed for it in the craft's pilot. Following the trail, he found the injured being huddled against a fallen log. Their form was vaguely humanoid but with silvery skin that seemed to shift like quicksilver. Multiple arms, he counted 4, were wrapped around a nasty wound in their torso, still leaking that bright blue fluid. The alien's eyes met his, 3 of them, arranged in a triangle pattern, and James saw something universal in them: pain, fear, and hope. He raised his empty hands slowly, speaking in a calm voice honed by years of treating shell-shocked soldiers. "I'm here to help. I'm a medic." The alien responded with a series of musical tones before a small device at their throat activated, converting the sounds to English. "Diplomatic, vessel, pursued. Cannot, fall into wrong hands." Each word seemed to cause them pain. James didn't hesitate. "I'm getting you somewhere safe. My cabin's about a mile from here. Can you move with assistance?" The alien tried to stand but stumbled. James caught them, surprised by how light they were despite their size. "Easy there. Let's take it slow." He helped them up, supporting their weight while trying to avoid the injured area. As they made their slow progress through the deepening night, James learned his unexpected guest was Ambassador Zilvax from something called the Galactic Concordat. They'd been on a secret diplomatic mission when their ship was attacked by isolationist extremists opposed to contact with Earth. The storm intensified around them, but James knew these mountains better than anyone. He'd chosen this location specifically for its defensibility and seclusion after retiring. Now those same qualities would help him protect someone who might be key to humanity's future. They were halfway back when Zilvax stumbled, their silvery skin taking on a worrying pale tone. "Cannot maintain thermal regulation. Your world, so cold." James immediately shed his outer thermal coat, wrapping it around the alien despite their weak protests. "I've got more layers, and humans are pretty good at generating heat. Save your strength, we're almost there." By the time they reached his cabin, Zilvax was barely conscious. James activated the cabin security systems, another habit his former teammates had teased him about, and set about treating his patient. The alien's physiology was unlike anything he'd seen, but trauma was trauma. The wound needed cleaning, closing, and time to heal. As he worked through the night, using his medical scanner to understand the alien's unusual biology, James couldn't help but smile at the irony. He'd moved to this remote location to get away from the world, and now the universe had quite literally crashed into his backyard. Outside, the storm raged on, covering their tracks and hiding them from whatever forces had attacked the ambassador. Inside, as James stabilized his patient using a combination of advanced medical technology and old-school combat medic experience, holiday lights twinkled on his modest Christmas tree, a touch of normalcy in an increasingly extraordinary situation. Little did he know, this was just the beginning of an adventure that would change not only his life but the relationship between two civilizations, all starting during the most wonderful time of the year. Dawn broke over Pinecrest Valley, painting the snow-covered landscape in soft golden hues. Inside James's cabin, Ambassador Zilvax lay stabilized on a makeshift medical bed, their silvery skin now pulsing with a healthier glow. James hadn't slept, monitoring their vital signs throughout the night using a combination of his military medical equipment and improvised solutions for the aliens' unique biology. "Your methods are unorthodox," Zilvax observed, watching as James replaced a standard saline drip with a modified solution he'd concocted based on readings from their blood chemistry. "But effective. Our medical technology is more advanced, yet you adapted quickly." James checked the bandages covering the wound, noting with satisfaction that the blue bleeding had stopped. "Combat medicine teaches you to work with what you've got. Sometimes the fanciest tech fails, and you're left with basics and ingenuity." The ambassador's 3 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture James was beginning to recognize as indicating interest. "This celebration you humans prepare for, Christmas? Tell me about it while you work. The cultural database in my translator is limited." As James continued his medical checks, he found himself explaining Earth's winter holidays, from Christmas to Hanukkah to solstice celebrations. Zilvax listened intently, especially fascinated by the concept of giving gifts to strengthen bonds between family and friends. "Your species turns the harshest season into a time of connection," they observed. "There's wisdom in that. The Concordat could learn from such practices." Their conversation was interrupted by a warning chirp from James's security system. Something had triggered the outer perimeter sensors. James moved quickly to the monitoring station, checking the feeds from his carefully hidden cameras. 3 vehicles approaching from the valley road, he reported, his voice turning professional. "Military grade, but no markings. Not official armed forces, they'd never use civilian models like that." Zilvax tried to sit up, their secondary arms gripping the bed for support. "The Purity Brigade. They're the ones who shot down my ship. Extremists who believe Earth should remain isolated from galactic society." "Well, they picked the wrong cabin to approach," James said grimly, activating a series of switches that would have seemed excessive to anyone who didn't know his background. 20 years in special operations taught me a thing or two about perimeter defense." The approaching vehicles suddenly found themselves dealing with strategically placed ice patches, hidden tire spikes, and paths that seemed clear but led to deep snow drifts. James watched with grim satisfaction as the first vehicle spun out, blocking the others. "We should have a few minutes before they try approaching on foot," he said, already gathering essential supplies. "There's a tunnel system under the cabin, another preparation my colleagues called paranoid. It leads to a sheltered cave system with medical supplies and enough provisions for weeks." Zilvax studied him with those triangular eyes. "You humans constantly surprise me. You live in what seems a simple dwelling, yet prepare for complex emergencies. Why?" James carefully helped them to their feet, supporting their weight as they moved toward the concealed tunnel entrance. "Because peace isn't about being defenseless, it's about being prepared so you can choose peace from a position of strength." As they made their way into the tunnel, James activated the cabin's secondary systems. Soon, the approaching hostiles would find themselves dealing with holographic projections of movement in multiple directions, non-lethal but disorienting sonic pulses, and environmental controls that would make approaching the cabin extremely challenging. "Your holiday celebrations include tales of miraculous survival and light in darkness, yes?" Zilvax asked as they moved deeper into the tunnel system. When James nodded, they continued, "Perhaps this will become another such story, one of cooperation between worlds." The tunnel opened into a larger cave, surprisingly well equipped with medical equipment, communications gear, and even some comfortable furnishings. James helped Zilvax settle onto a medical cot before activating the cave's security and monitoring systems. "I've got a few friends in town who can help us," James explained, setting up a secure communication line. "People who believe in doing what's right, even when it's not easy. And believe it or not, you've crash-landed during the perfect time of year for finding such allies." Above them, the Purity Brigade would be finding the cabin empty, all traces of their quarry hidden by the continuing snowfall. But in doing so, they'd reveal themselves to James's surveillance, providing valuable intelligence about their numbers and capabilities. As James began sending encrypted messages to trusted contacts, he glanced at his alien patient, now resting more comfortably. Sometimes the greatest gifts, he reflected, came in the most unexpected packages. This Christmas was certainly shaping up to be one for the history books, not just Earth's, but perhaps the galaxy's as well. "Get some rest, Ambassador," he said softly. "The next few days will be interesting, but you're not facing them alone. And around here, we take care of our guests, especially during the holidays." The annual Pinecrest Winter Festival was in full swing, transforming the small mountain town square into a wonderland of lights and celebration. James watched from his concealed position near the clock tower, scanning the crowds with practiced eyes. His alien guest, now recovered enough to move, stood beside him wrapped in winter clothing that concealed their unusual appearance. "Your people celebrate with such vibrancy," Zilvax observed, their voice modulator adjusted to sound more human. Their silvery skin had been covered with a sophisticated holographic disguise, making them appear as just another bundled-up festival-goer. "That's what the Purity Brigade doesn't understand," James replied, continuing his surveillance. "Humanity's strength isn't in isolation, it's in our ability to come together, especially in tough times." His secure communicator buzzed. It was Regina Blackwood, the town's sheriff and his old military colleague. "Movement on the North Ridge, James. 3 vehicles matching your description. They're being subtle, but they're definitely sweeping toward the festival." James had known this confrontation was coming. The Purity Brigade had spent days searching the mountains, gradually closing in on the town. But here, surrounded by the festival crowds, they'd have to be careful. Any obvious violence would draw unwanted attention to their supposedly secret organization. "Understood. Package is secure. Initiate Protocol Nutcracker." James allowed himself a small smile at the operation name. The town's veterans had insisted on keeping with the holiday theme. Around the festival perimeter, seemingly ordinary decorations sprang to life. Strings of Christmas lights began broadcasting signal-jamming frequencies. Speakers playing holiday music added subtle sonic pulses that would disrupt digital communications. The festival's cheerful fog machines started pumping out smoke laced with electromagnetic particles that would interfere with advanced weapons systems. "Your defensive preparations," Zilvax noted with admiration, "they're hidden within the celebration itself." "Best place to hide something is in plain sight," James replied. Every veteran in town contributed their expertise. The lights were designed by our former electronic warfare specialist. The sonic system came from our sound engineer who now runs the local music shop. Movement caught his eye, figures in dark winter gear moving too purposefully through the crowd. The brigade was here, but so were James's people. He spotted Tom Chen, the retired demolitions expert, casually manning a hot chocolate stand. Maria Santos, their former recon expert, was leading children in carol singing while her eyes constantly scanned the crowd. Suddenly, the festival lights flickered. The brigade was making their move, trying to cause a blackout as cover. But they didn't know about Katie O'Brien, the town's electrician and former Navy engineer, who had redesigned the entire power grid for redundancy. The lights stabilized, and James gave the signal. His team sprang into action with practiced precision. The Concordat ship descended through Earth's atmosphere with elegant precision, its crystalline surface refracting the morning sunlight like a massive ornament. James stood with Zilvax in the designated landing area just outside Pinecrest, their breath-forming clouds in the crisp winter air. The town had transformed the local football field into a makeshift landing zone, surrounding it with holiday decorations to maintain the festive appearance. "Your people are nervous," Zilvax observed, noting the tension in the small gathering of town officials and military representatives who had been cleared for this historic moment. "Can you blame them?" James adjusted his formal uniform, worn for the first time in years. "This is first contact for most of them. Real, official first contact." The ship settled onto the snow-covered ground with barely a whisper, its advanced technology making the landing seem almost magical. A delegation emerged, led by High Commissioner Naxlier, whose iridescent robes rippled like liquid starlight. James noticed how the alien officials carried themselves with rigid formality, their movements precise and measured. But he also saw something else in their expressions: worry, concern, and perhaps a touch of fear. Sheriff Blackwood stepped forward, her voice clear in the winter morning. "Welcome to Earth. We apologize for the unconventional circumstances of this meeting." High Commissioner Naxlier's translator converted their harmonic response. "We are uncertain of our welcome, given recent events. The Purity Brigade's actions were the actions of a few," James interrupted, breaking protocol but speaking from the heart. "Let us show you how Earth really welcomes visitors." What followed was unlike any diplomatic function in human or Concordat history. Instead of formal negotiations in sterile conference rooms, the town hosted their interstellar visitors at the continuing winter festival. The aliens found themselves drawn into the warmth and chaos of human celebration. High Commissioner Naxlier watched in fascination as children made snow angels, their spontaneous joy challenging the Concordat's rigid views on proper behavior. A junior diplomat became entranced by the process of making hot chocolate, particularly when Tom Chen taught them about the tradition of adding marshmallows. "Your species turns everything into a reason for connection," one Concordat scientist noted, watching families decorate cookies together. "Even your diplomatic processes involve shared meals and celebrations." James, walking with Zilvax through the festival, saw the gradual transformation in their visitors. The formal postures relaxed. The worried expressions softened. Even their translators seemed to adopt more casual patterns of speech. The turning point came during the evening's lantern release ceremony. As hundreds of paper lanterns floated into the night sky, their warm light mingling with the stars above, High Commissioner Naxlier turned to James. "We came here expecting to find a primitive, possibly hostile species," they admitted. "Instead, we find a people who turn defense into celebration, who face uncertainty with joy, who meet the unknown with open arms and warm drinks." A group of carolers began singing "Silent Night," their voices carrying across the snow-covered square. James watched as several Concordat diplomats swayed to the melody, their natural bioluminescence unconsciously syncing with the rhythm. "That's humanity at its best," James replied. "We're not perfect. We have our fears, our prejudices, our purity brigades. But we also have this, the ability to come together, to share our joy, to turn strangers into friends." Zilvax, who had been quiet for much of the evening, suddenly spoke. "When I crashed here, I thought I was experiencing a disaster. Instead, I discovered something the Concordat has forgotten in its pursuit of perfect order, the power of spontaneous kindness, of celebration in the face of adversity." As the evening progressed, formal diplomatic discussions did take place, but they happened over shared meals and around warming fires. Treaties were sketched out on the backs of festival programs. Cultural exchange protocols were discussed while learning to make esmores. "Your holiday traditions," High Commissioner Naxlier observed near the end of the night, "they're not just celebrations. They're reminders of what matters most: connection, hope, light in the darkness. Perhaps this is what the galaxy needs most right now." James looked around at the scene, human children teaching alien diplomats how to build snowmen, Concordat scientists enthusiastically participating in an impromptu snowball fight, sheriff's deputies sharing hot cider with beings from across the stars. "Welcome to Earth," he said again, but this time not as a formal greeting but as a genuine invitation to share in humanity's greatest strength, its capacity for joy, even in the most extraordinary circumstances. Above them, the stars twinkled alongside the festival lights, and for the first time in history, the boundaries between Earth and the wider galaxy began to blur, all thanks to an unexpected crash landing and a small town's determination to celebrate the season of peace and goodwill with all beings of good faith. 1 year later, Pinecrest Valley looked very different during its winter festival. Crystalline structures grown by Concordat artisans sparkled alongside traditional Christmas lights. The aroma of hot chocolate mingled with the sweet scent of alien spices that had become local favorites. Children wore light-up badges that translated their carols into harmonic Concordat frequencies. James stood at his usual observation post near the clock tower, but this time he wasn't scanning for threats. Instead, he watched with satisfaction as Ambassador Zilvax, now Earth's official liaison to the Concordat, helped a group of young humans and alien visitors decorate a unique Christmas tree. Its branches held ornaments from a dozen worlds, each telling a story of connection across the stars. "Did you ever imagine this when you found me in the snow?" Zilvax asked, approaching with 2 steaming mugs, one regular hot chocolate, one infused with bioluminescent algae from their homeworld. "Honestly? No," James admitted, accepting his mug. "I was just doing what needed to be done. Seems like that's how the best traditions start." The festival had become famous across Earth and throughout Concordat space as the site of the holiday contact, as the media called it. But Pinecrest had managed to maintain its small-town charm, even as it became a symbol of interstellar cooperation. The town's veterans had found new purpose. Tom Chen now ran an interspecies culinary school, specializing in comfort food from across the cosmos. Maria Santos led cultural exchange programs, teaching Earth customs to alien visitors while helping humans understand Concordat traditions. Katie O'Brien had partnered with Concordat engineers to develop new clean energy systems based on a fusion of human ingenuity and alien technology. The Purity Brigade supporters claimed contact would destroy Earth's culture, Sheriff Blackwood commented, joining them with her own drink, a tea made from both Earth and alien herbs. "Instead, it made our traditions stronger, gave them new meaning." She gestured to where her deputies were teaching a group of Concordat security officers how to make snow angels, while being instructed in return about harmonious movement patterns that improved coordination and awareness. The festival now included new traditions. The annual lantern release was accompanied by Concordat light sculptures that danced among the floating lights. Children's letters to Santa were translated into multiple alien languages, leading to an interstellar gift exchange program that promoted cultural understanding. The Concordat High Council was skeptical when I proposed making this an official diplomatic event, Zilvax said, their silvery skin reflecting the festival lights. They couldn't understand why serious diplomatic work should involve what they called frivolous celebrations. "And now?" James asked, already knowing the answer from the dozen Concordat diplomatic families who had become permanent residents of Pinecrest. Now they understand that this is the most effective diplomacy of all. When you share joy, break bread together, celebrate each other's traditions, that's when real understanding happens. As if to prove their point, a small commotion drew their attention. A young Concordat child had just experienced their first snowfall. Instead of maintaining the typical dignified reserve of their species, they were spinning with delight, their bioluminescence creating patterns in the darkness. Nearby human children, rather than finding this strange, joined in with sparklers, creating a spontaneous light show. "That's the real victory," James said softly. "Not the treaties or trade agreements, but moments like this. When alien just means friend we haven't met yet." The evening celebrations culminated in a new tradition, the Harmony Choir, where human voices and Concordat harmonics blended together in songs of peace and hope. The music carried across the valley, a symbol of what was possible when fear was replaced with curiosity, and isolation with connection. High above, orbital platforms tracked ships arriving from across the galaxy, bringing visitors to what had become known as the galaxy's greatest holiday celebration. Each visitor would take home stories not just of Earth's traditions, but of how a potential disaster had transformed into an annual reminder that the best way to face the unknown was with an open heart and a warm drink to share. To unexpected crashes and new traditions, Zilvax raised their glowing mug. To peace on Earth, and goodwill to all beings, James replied, completing what had become their yearly toast. Around them, the festival continued, no longer just a human celebration or even an Earth tradition, but something new, a reminder that sometimes the greatest gifts come not wrapped in paper, but in the moments when different worlds come together and find common ground in the simple joy of celebration. In the years to come, many would say that the true miracle of that first unexpected Christmas wasn't the contact itself, but how a small mountain town's determination to celebrate the season of giving had shown the galaxy that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in its technology or its military might, but in its capacity to turn strangers into family, one cup of hot chocolate at a time.